The Friendly Atheist brought up some good points in his video 78 Questions for Christians regarding the nature of prayer. How does prayer work? If you want something and you pray for it, aren't you assuming that God doesn't already know what you want? Aren't you also assuming that God hasn't already decided whether he's going to give it to you? The idea behind petitionary prayer seems to be that you can change God's mind. Like, God had no plans to cure your cancer, but if you pray real hard for it, he might just reconsider. Isn't that kind of hard to square with the idea that God is this timeless, changeless being? But if God is changeless, and if he has already decided whether or not he's going to cure your cancer, what's the point of praying for it? There have been studies on the efficacy of prayer, and none of them have shown prayer to be effective. A few studies involved comparing a control group of hospital patients to another group for whom some people were asked to pray. The group for whom people were asked to pray recovered no faster nor more completely than the control group. Another study, conducted by Francis Galton in 1872, compared the life expectancy of members of the British royal family to the general population. The reasoning behind this was that people all over Britain and many other parts of the British Empire prayed for the monarchy's well-being every Sunday. So if prayer works, you would think that the people who were prayed for the most would live a little longer than the rest of us. Galton found no difference in life expectancy whatsoever. Some have argued that God didn't heal people who were being studied because God's not going to submit himself to a test. He's not going to perform on command for a bunch of scientists. But what about the royal family studies? Did God intentionally ignore a bunch of the prayers for the royal family through the centuries because he knew that someday somebody would check to see whether they were working? Does God ignore prayers out of spite? Why does God go to such lengths to deliberately hide himself and his powers? In Romans 1:20 it says this about non-believers: "For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." But this is not the case. If God is not healing people just because they're being studied, he is actively hiding his powers. And how could God say that people have no excuse for not believing in him if he deliberately hides evidence of his existence? Isn't that kind of a dick move? And speaking of dicks, VenomFangX once tried to answer the question, why doesn't God heal amputees? His answer was that God doesn't heal amputees because amputees don't deserve to be healed because they are all sinners who deserve to die. This, of course, misses the point of the question. Many Christians claim that their cancer was healed, or their hepatitis or whatever, because they prayed really hard for it. But nobody says that their limbs grew back. Why is that the case? If everyone is a sinner, why is it that God heals some sinners and not others? Is it because some sinners are worse than others? If that's the case, does that mean that amputees are all bigger sinners than all of the cancer patients who have been healed? How the fuck does that make any sense?